As ECOWAS gets a new chairman, the regional community role in the actualization of the African Continental Free Trade Area, it is once again in focus as experts want an acceleration of this objective as a priority for the new leadership. We took the perspective of Professor Ladan of the consultants pushing for the AFCFTA across the continent. Here now is the excerpt.
In my view, the new leadership of ECOWAS needs to navigate through some of the existing political, economic, and social challenges facing the economic community of West African states. And these actually include essentially infrastructure deficit, matters relating to trade facilitation, and then ultimately how the ECOWAS, as one of the 8 building blocks of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, can continue to be that solid foundation for the AFTA trade regime to succeed. Because AFTA trade regime essentially is relying actually on the regional economic communities to facilitate trade, promote intra-African trade, and at the same time mobilize persons, goods, and services within actually their region to actively participate, particularly producers, exporters, importers, creators, innovators, MSMEs, the private sector. All these can easily be mobilized faster or quicker by the regional economic communities like ECOWAS than the continental regime, and that is why they will remain relevant in the AFTA trade regime system. And that's why Article 5 of the AFTA agreement explicitly says one of its guiding principles is that it will be a member state driven, and it will also be relying on the regional economic communities like ECOWAS, SADC, COMESA, EAC, as the building blocks, for the success of AFTA regime, which means there is going to be synergy and complementarity between ECOWAS as one of the building blocks, REX, with the AFTA trade regime, as a whole. And in my view also, I think we need to also underscore from your second question that the leadership of ECOWAS, should leverage its existing regional integration framework and experience, particularly the experience in trade, investment, competition, in intellectual property rights, etc., to facilitate the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. AFTA, specifically, ECOWAS can act as a regional platform coordinating efforts among its member states within the sub-region of West Africa, harmonizing regulations on trade, investment, IPR, competition policy, and other related areas that harmonization has not yet, done, particularly in the broader, business, laws and regulations. And then, ECOWAS can also actively support national implementation strategies of the AFTA within the sub-region. This is one of the reasons why the RECs like ECOWAS are the building blocks of AFTA trade regime. This particular, support for national implementation strategies of the member state within ECOWAS of the AFTA agreement and its 8 protocols, will include streamlining custom procedures, facilitating trade, addressing potential challenges like non-tariff barriers, and then if you also look at the need for RECs like ECOWAS to do regional coordination and harmonization, it requires ECOWAS to play a crucial role in ensuring that the national AFTA implementation strategies are aligned with the regional framework and with each other. The second point is also about harmonizing regulations. ECOWAS can work with member states to harmonize regulations related to customs standards, trade procedures, reducing barriers to trade within the region and across the continent. It can also facilitate dialogue between and among member states through consultations with the private sector, with other stakeholders to address implementation challenges in order to promote a common understanding of AFTA objectives. And I believe also that capacity building and private sector engagement is key, because AFTA trade regime under the agreement and its protocols may be, according to Article 5, may be actually member state driven. But the reality on ground is that it must be private sector led, including MSMEs. So the goal, and the volume actually of the single market to be created, and the intra-African trade that needs to be boosted, the diversification actually of our economies, and the need to promote industrialization, these are not matters that member state or national government can do alone. They need the private sector, and they also need the engine of economic growth in Africa, that is the MSMEs. So this is actually one area where I think ECOWAS can play a role in capacity building and private sector engagement, including MSMEs, by supporting national capacities, providing them with technical assistance, training of different actors from member states, in order to strengthen member state capacity to implement AFTA regime, trade, investment, IPR, digital trade, women and youth in trade, and also trade in goods and trade in services, and then to understand the dispute settlement mechanism provided under the 8th protocol under the AFTA regime. And I would like to conclude by saying that ECOWAS engagement, or any actually of the 8 RECs in Africa that will continue to be the building blocks for AFTA trade regime, must continue to engage with the private sector, including the MSMEs. I think this is my very actually last point that I really want to re-emphasize, because they are the ones that will actually lead in terms of this AFTA trade and investment, and then enable us to reach the single market, and at the same time boost intra-African trade. Just last week, Afrexim Bank released the Africa Trade Report 2025, and it was very clear that just in the last 5 years alone, because AFTA is improving in terms of its guided trade initiative, the old data that shows that Africa has stagnated in terms of its intra-African trade is no more relevant. And what is relevant today is that as at the end of 2024, reported last week, June 2025, intra-African trade has increased to 12.4%. And it has also reached the volume of $220.3 billion US dollars. That is a remarkable achievement, in terms of the progressive realization of the objectives, of AFTA trade regime under the AFTA agreement and its 8 protocols.